one day, it was like I woke up and I'm saying, I have made this man my God. And I'm thinking, like, if he is like God and he treats me like this, and I feel this way, I wouldn't even want to serve a God like that.
Yeah.
So what changed for me is that I began to develop a relationship with God and His Word to find out, how is God?
Yeah.
God is consistent. You know, God is the same yesterday, today, and forevermore. He doesn't change. When I first received Jesus, I didn't understand about building my relationship with the Father. I had no clue of it, didn't have any idea of it because I wasn't raised in ministry. I would just go, you know, periodically growing up. But I remember when my husband, well, at that time was an acquaintance of mine, started talking about Jesus and receiving Him as Lord, and I got saved, and I didn't have an idea of what that should look like. So when I got married, I really made my husband like my God.
Yeah,
You know, I did. He was like God to me. So he was the one that I looked towards for satisfaction. You know, he was the source of my satisfaction. Everything about him made me happy or sad. Like, if he didn't like it, it made me feel a certain way. It controlled my whole being. And I remember one day it hit me. I'm saying, this has to be abnormal. I mean, like, now I've been married for over 38 years. And so, you know, I have a clue, a little better understanding of how that thing should have started. But it started nothing like that, right? But one day it was like I woke up and I'm saying, I have made this man my God. And I'm thinking, like, if he is like God and he treats me like this, and I feel this way, I wouldn't even want to serve a God like that.
Yeah.
So what changed for me is that I began to develop a relationship with God and His Word to find out, how is God? God is consistent. You know, God is the same yesterday, today, and forevermore. He doesn't change. And my emotions and everything about me was changing based on my earthly relationship because I had overly committed myself to it.
Yeah.
You know, and then it was like, I got a clue, like, this is so abnormal. And when I began to develop my relationship with God and His Word, it changed my whole perspective of how and who was supposed to be the source of my satisfaction. I mean, I really put a lot of pressure on my husband to be God for me. It was like, you're supposed to be this for me, right? And like, no, I can't.
Wow.
And you know, it's like, I cannot even tell you like when it hit, but it hit. Like, this is so abnormal.
Could Mike tell? I mean, did he feel that pressure, and could he tell when you shifted?
I absolutely, I do believe he could tell, because I mean, it was like he was the, you know, you marry somebody strong, and then you get in this relationship and you realize they are not as strong as you thought they were. I became so vulnerable, so weak. Like, it's like, you're it. You're my everything. It's like, I can't be everything to you. DeeDee. Come on, you're gonna have to get this together.
Right.
That was a very good question.
It is so necessary to avoid putting someone else in the spot that only is reserved for God. When you do that, you will never receive all of what you're supposed to receive from God. It becomes unhealthy, and you begin to apply the pressures on people who cannot perform what only God can do. So it is so important that you be intentional about building your relationship and your walk with God, so you won't put unrealistic expectations and pressures on those that cannot fulfill what only God can do.
I think a lot of times we go into marriage and we think it's going to do a lot more for us than it can. You know, we're like, I think of 2 cups and they're both half full. And you put those half full cups together and you have a full cup. And it feels really good for a little while. And then you realize, wait a second, I'm still a half full person. Marriage doesn't complete me. It doesn't give me security. It doesn't take away, it doesn't give me purpose. It doesn't take away my insecurities. And it can't give me what God can give me. And I think even for us to have a good marriage, we have to be full cups, standing alone, cups that are overflowing. And that's the overflow that we give to our relationship rather than desperately trying to fill up with another human being who does not have the capacity to fill us up. They just can't. That's too much pressure.
That's too much pressure.
Just because they're trying to be like Jesus doesn't mean that they are. They aren't. You know what I'm saying? Like they can't still be him, even though we're all trying to be conformed to the image of who he is.
He was so far away from who Jesus happened to be. Just let me say that. You know,
You want it?
totally. Look, like I said, I've been married for over 38 years. That first 7 or 8 years of my relationship was really like hell on earth. It was horrible. It was bad because of my expectations. I think his as well, because he came from a background of Christianity. His family were born again. His mom, his dad, father, pastor, whatever. Well, I came in an environment where nobody was saved.
So,
You know, my older sister got saved, you know, later in life. So here he's marrying from this heathen family. And I had expectations and he had expectations. And we both tried to make each other fit into this mold. And we just wouldn't fit. How do we not put that expectation and responsibility on maybe not just a spouse, but even on our children? You know, because there's some single parents, I'm sure, that are viewing, or even married parents that will put expectations on their children to fulfill some hole, you know, in their heart. You know, that longing to be loved and that pressure to perform, you know. And so how do we even share not to do such? You know, what do we tell them? How do you not do this?
You know, I had to, like, I got married recently. You know what I'm saying? So I was single recently. And so it's that whole thing of knowing that sometimes, like you say, you think you're going to bring half and I'm going to bring my half or put it together, make a whole. No, you got to bring whole and whole. You know what I'm saying? Because healthy person and an unhealthy person is still an unhealthy relationship. Functional and dysfunctional is still a dysfunctional relationship. So I have to make sure that my relationship with Christ is right and that he is my satisfaction. You know, my husband is my Boaz, he's my kinsman redeemer, but Jesus Christ is my ultimate redeemer. You know, and if I don't keep that as my focus, then I can try and shift on him what really only Christ can satisfy, you know? And so it's like, I think the focus and the healthier I become, the more healthy I bring to the relationship, not the more healthy he brings to the relationship to heal me.
I remember one time I was having a conversation with my sister-in-law, and I told her, I said, you know, I cannot say that I love God more than I love Mike. I couldn't say it. You know, I know some people will be like, ooh, really? You know, it's easy to say,
Oh, sure.
you know, God, oh, I love you more than I love them. But then when God tells you to do something, it's like, well, let me pray about it. Who you going to pray to? He's telling you to do something. Right?
Who are you going to appeal to?
Let me think about this one. But then when our spouse wants something from us, we're ready to perform or to make that happen, if you will. But I could not say honestly that I really loved God more than I loved him until I began to get a revelation and become more intimate with his word. I mean, just like even the scripture here, reading this in Ephesians 3:18, it says, and may you have the power to understand, as all God's people should, how wide, how long, how high, and how deep his love is. You know, I didn't have an understanding of how deep his love was for me. You know, how he gave his only begotten son just for me. I didn't have a revelation of that. It really meant nothing to me. It was like, okay, I'm saved, I won't go to hell.
I
didn't have that revelation of he really loved me.
Wow. And how did that happen? Like, was it in church? Was it God just speaking to you?
No, well, because I was going to church, so it was really just coming to a realization of, like I said at the beginning, I had to see that this was abnormal. It was not benefiting me. And, you know, you go to church and you hear, you know, people teaching the word. And plus I wasn't in a real word church back then. So it was more emotionalism. But I just knew it wasn't healthy. It's like, this is wrong. This is wrong. It was making me worse. It wasn't making me good. And I'm saying, if God is so good and I should be benefiting from this, why am I receiving this? So I had to change my focus. Had to take my focus off of him and I put my focus on this word and my expectations on the word. I cannot say, because it's been so long, I really cannot say, honestly, it was because I had a word and it changed my life, or things were just that bad. And, you know, it was like you just wake up one day and say, this isn't right.
My marriage began to change when I began to see God as the source of my satisfaction and not Mike. And how it did that is because I began to see myself in it. Like, when you are trying to make a change without knowing who is the source, you will never make the right change. So when I was connected to God and His Word, it began to put a light on what I was doing and took the light off of Mike and what he wasn't doing. So I began to change and I began to act like I wanted to see something different. And I saw something different. You know, the Bible talks about to write the vision and make it plain. And I got a clear vision of what I wanted to see in my future. And in order to get there, I had to listen to God to tell me what I needed to change to get me there.
Back to that analogy of the fact that sometimes we go into marriage as half full cups. And I think we have to get to the root of why.
Very
So much stuff from our own past,
That's right.
our trauma history, the things that we lacked in a relationship, in our family of origin. Like maybe we didn't get that affirmation, that connection, that attachment that we needed. And we bring that stuff into marriage. You know, we bring it all in. And I think acknowledging that we're half cups and then realizing that our relationship with God is a relationship. You know, when you think, I work with a lot of singles, and it's so incredible how motivated they are to invest in relationships. Like, I want to go on dates and meet these people and commit to marriage and, you know, time and energy and money. And what's interesting, though, is our relationship with God is a relationship.
That's right.
And we don't invest in it the same way. Like, my husband and I, we have Sunday night check-ins every week. We do date nights. We have hard conversations. We have things built into our schedule to build our relationship.
So good, Debra.
We don't always have things built into our schedule to build our relationship with God. We think it's just going to happen. You know, every now and again when I am in need, Jesus help me. But those rhythms are part of relationship building, and I think part of filling ourselves up.
I remember this. The day, now I definitely remember this encounter. I remember how he used to come home and he would just always be so irritated and agitated with me. And I would say, this, why? Because I hadn't even done anything. You've been
I just breathed. I was just breathing.
Just breathing. You know? And I would just, because I mean, I just used to be just off, crazy, just off, right? And one day he came home and I decided I'm not going to be crazy anymore.
Wow.
I had started learning faith. I understood my role and responsibility in righteousness. And I knew if I wanted something, I needed to sow something. And a lot of people don't understand the law of sowing and reaping, right?
Yes.
I said, okay, God, since your word works, not if your word works.
Since.
I changed my whole perspective. I said, since your word works, I'm going to start treating him like he's acting like he's supposed to be.
Come
There you
on.
go.
And it's going to change the way I act.
Wow.
And so that's what I did. I started just treating him good. I started treating him like he was the best.
He's like, what's up with this?
Yeah, no. And this one particular time, I remember when he came home and I was like, hey, you want something to eat? I don't want your food. I've been down my mother's house. We were young. I got married at 21. He said, I went to my mother's house. You went where?
No wonder.
Oh, but this day,
But you
like,
flipped. Okay, good.
oh, okay, no problem.
Oh.
If you want something later? I can't even remember if we had microwaves then. I probably had to come put it back in the oven. I said, that's okay. If you want something later, I'll come, and warm it up.
Who is this?
And he was looking like, oh, now you want to act like a Christian. I'm like,
Did you take the bait?
I didn't take that bait.
Good.
So I'll go upstairs, run him some bath water and say, hey, I ran you some water. I don't get no he was just being mean.
Yes.
He was just irritated.
Yes.
But I had I cannot take full responsibility of how he was acting, but I promise you, some of that weight that I put on him, it affected him.
Yeah, gotcha.
And so I had to stay consistent.
Wow.
That's good.
Yeah.
I stayed
That's
consistent,
good,
and I remember him coming to me crying and apologizing for the way that he was treating me, and said I was acting like a cold fool. I was so stubborn. I was so hard, and I apologized. And I remember it changing our relationship. And so now I always share with people like what the devil meant for evil.
Yes.
God took that same relationship now, holds it in his hand, and say, this is what I intended.
At TBN, our mission is to use every available means to reach as many individuals and families as possible with the life-changing gospel of Jesus Christ.
Thank you for helping make the gospel of grace go around the world.
And it's because of you that partner with us that this ministry continues. God bless you.